And so looking at this chart, this bottom area, this zone, the ascending broadening wedge, if I just flip this page back to Bitcoin with that area lined up, it does seem like a possibility. It does seem like, we're on this uptrend, the widening highs and lows, ascending broadening wedge. Bitcoin could be looking to put in a low soon and then look to create that final speculative bubble to end the cycle going into the first few months of 2022. Right now, I'm looking at Bitcoin on the 5-minute chart because today was by far one of the most dramatic trading sessions in recent times. We went from 57,670 all the way down to 51,640, giving us a 10.5% drop in just a few hours. There was tremendous fear in the market today. We are starting to see a little bit of a recovery, but we want to discuss exactly why this happened today and what we can expect moving forward. One of the main reasons why Bitcoin and the crypto market dumped today was actually because of the stock market. We had the jobs report sending mixed signals on the economy, creating a lot of uncertainty. And looking at the S&P 500 on the 1-minute chart, the day started off with a slight pump, and then we just continued to slide into lower lows and lower highs all day long. I mean, if you were watching this, guys, it was absolutely gnarly to see this. And the crypto market did not have a very good reaction, right? We actually slid down all day long, lower highs, lower lows, until the end of the day where we saw a little bit of a glimmer of hope with a slight rebound and some higher highs for the S&P. Though what caused Bitcoin to drop so much was this lower high, lower low trajectory that played out all day long for the stock market. And if you're looking at the S&P and then we pull up Bitcoin in a comparison, right, we actually see that they were both following a very similar trajectory. And even at the end of the day, they both saw a recovery alongside one another together. On Twitter today, I said, we're at one of those points in time where Bitcoin's market closely ties itself to the stock market action. This takes place when people in the crypto market become uncertain. Then market participants gauge their confidence based on outside forces. And if you were watching the S&P and Bitcoin all day long, for the most part, we were getting these bounces and dumps right alongside the stock market. And really, like I said, the reason why is because when people are not sure about Bitcoin, they start looking at the outside forces, the other reasons why Bitcoin could be dumping. And then confidence becomes totally based on what the stock market is doing on days like this, right? On days like this. It doesn't happen all the time. There are obviously times when their correlation is less significant, but in recent times, it's pretty clear that the S&P and Bitcoin have been closely aligned with one another. And this likely has to do with all the recent fears of the COVID variant and also the jobs reports, right? And that causing the stock market to tumble, and then people become a little bit less certain about Bitcoin. Although the story for Bitcoin, if you're looking at the daily chart, is not all too bad despite today being a very, very red day. The overall story is still decent, right? I mean, Bitcoin's trading at 53,600, which historically is fantastic. Now, of course, there is still a lot of downside risk based on the stock market instability. If we can't flip this into new support in this range and we break down below the channel for the S&P and we get, we see a much more unstable market, then it's possible that Bitcoin also breaks down below the yellow 128-day SMA, which was our support here at end of September, and our support here today as well in this trend line. If we break down, then that could put us in a longer-term sideways range, right? A downtrend where maybe we just kind of have a wintertime lull until we move in the first few months of 2022, right? That is if the scenario where stocks, basically tumble even further, then yeah, something like that could take place as well. Although so far we're still above the 128-day. On linear scale, we're holding the trend line. If we draw our trend line on log scale, we did fall below it, right? And we still have a little bit less than an hour to see if Bitcoin can bounce up and close above the trend line. So we do have a bearish signal on log scale that we're breaking out of this trend, right? So log scale, we do have one bearish signal there. Keep that in mind as well. Now, here's where the story gets interesting for Bitcoin in terms of the trend in the chart. If you're looking on log scale and you draw this upward sloping trend line, we are currently below it, though we do have another hour left to see if this does bounce or close above the trend line. But there's been a new narrative that's been going around for the past week or so on, you know, crypto social media, discussing Jesse Livermore's speculative chart. And this is a famous chart from Jesse Livermore, who shorted the 1929 stock market collapse and made the equivalent of like $1.2 billion. But this is a ascending broadening wedge, which then turns into a major parabolic run, sort of like a speculative bubble formation. If we look at this chart and we compare it to Bitcoin, but we compare it to Bitcoin on linear scale, and we mark up our upward sloping trend line and our resistance here, right? On linear scale, now we have this trend line, which is actually still intact. And if we adjust the chart here to make it line up with the schematic, you see that we are in that type of ascending broadening wedge formation, right? The accumulation cylinder with a widening mouth, right? We have this accumulation cylinder. And the theory would be that, you know, this is a speculative market, Bitcoin, this speculative chart from Jesse Livermore has a potential to play out. And we are on this upward sloping trend line. We just bounced off of it, and we possibly might be looking for the final bubble zone of this cycle. And of course, this type of a speculative, you know, prediction, yeah, it's all based on speculation, right? It's literally called a speculative chart. So this is not really enough evidence to just say, well, it looks similar, so it's going to play out. What is some other on-chain metrics that supports this? One of them is the long-term holder supply shock ratio, which is currently, if you're looking at the top right, on the decline. And on the previous areas where it was on the decline, like in 2020, this was the beginning of a massive run to 42K and upwards of 65. Before that, the last time that it dipped, you know, hit a high and then started pulling back was actually in the 2019 run from 3.1K all the way to 14K. So when we start to see the supply shock, the long-term holder supply shock ratio start to curl over, it usually precedes a major bullish run. And we're currently once again at that point where we're seeing the long-term holder supply shock ratio starting to move down, which means that long-term holders are actually preparing for strength in the market, right? So we may actually be able to play out this type of a speculative market cycle, right? To end the market cycle, the Jesse Livermore's speculative chart cycle. This is possible, and we're currently in the accumulation cylinder with the widening mouth, the ascending broadening wedge. Currently, that's where we would be if this does play out. I see this as a strong potential, a strong possibility. Now, in order for us to play out Livermore's speculative chart, then we would have to, you know, see a stable stock market. And if you're looking at the S&P on the daily chart, despite the recent week being absolutely bloody and very uncomfortable to watch, really, we are still in this nice upward sloping channel line, right? We still have some kind of market structure. We still have integrity here. We have this previous high from September, now testing it as possible new support, right? Possible new support right in that range above the trend line of this channel, right? We're creating higher lows still, high, you know, previous resistance, new support. We still have a shot at seeing the stock market find support in this range and bounce. And if that does happen, then we could see something like Livermore's speculative chart play out for Bitcoin here moving into 2022. Just wanted to bring this idea to you guys. This has been getting a lot of attention on social media, the Livermore speculative chart, and how it's just perfectly resembling Bitcoin right now. So that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, definitely smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you all in the next video.